Give me a second. Okay, rolling and action. We're good. My shining hour. Is that last one? Is that last one equinox? Mannan.
This is authentic.
Projection, okay, I can project.
I think they're making you one.
My name's something for me. I'm prepared to holler now. Prepared to holler. Hollering a long time.
Okay, we getting the mic. We might not have to holler,
Testing 1, 2.
but it's okay. What Marvin said.
Testing.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Wonderful. Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Peace be unto you all, brothers and sisters. I'm standing here on behalf of Imam Tikumud Pacha. I'm going to just make a prayer. But before I do, I want to first of all thank District Council, Cordell Clear, District Leader Cordell Clear, and also the community partners that you have. I don't have that slate with me, but there's a number of them. And those of you who are partners in this, we thank you so much for joining and making this happen. It's a wonderful thing. Before I make the prayer, I just want to say that many times when people speak about Malcolm, they speak about what he said about the government, and all that's fine, everything he said. But I think for me, what's most important is that Malcolm was motivated by his faith in God. And I think sometimes we should give that more credence than anything else. That his thinking was based on his strong faith in God. With Dr. Martin Luther King, his thinking was based on his behavior and act, was based on his strong faith in God. Let us, as people of faith, never forget that. Don't just let it just be Malcolm who made this statement. That Malcolm, who was motivated, he was a Muslim motivated by his faith in God, and we should always make that priority always. And with that, I'm going to open up with a prayer, and I'm going to do it in Arabic and then English. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا صراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Amen. With God's name, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, all praises due to God, the cherisher, the sustainer of the world, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer, the master of the day of judgment. Thee alone do we worship, and your aid we seek. Show us the straight way, the way of those upon whom you've given your favors, not upon those whose portion is wrath, nor of those who go astray. Amen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Tariq. God first. Always. So I'm going to welcome everybody here today to Malcolm Shahbaz Plaza. That's where we're sitting. This is Malcolm Shahbaz Plaza. And I just want to say thank you. Tariq mentioned me, but I can't do anything without the community and the community partners. And I got to start with the Michelle Obama Community Democratic Club. Valerie Jo Bradley is my club president. I'm lucky and blessed. And I'm going to mention all of our partners. The Malcolm Shahbaz Masjid, where Malcolm X worshipped. The Interfaith Commission for Housing Equality. That's important. Save Harlem Now. Trying to preserve Harlem. What's left? Street Corner Resources. Trying to preserve Harlem's youth. Harlem Heritage Tours. Trying to preserve our heritage and our culture. Harlem Inc. Preserving our culture. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. Keeping it down on 113. Say Yes Productions. Okay? Preserving our voice. I love it. So we're here today, and we have some real important people out here on the plaza. So you know, I think I saw y'all talking. Y'all have all met each other. But it's wonderful because God gave us this beautiful day, and we're here today because this is Malcolm X Plaza, and I remember being a part of the dedication of this space many years ago. And sometimes I walk past here, and it makes me very sad to see the filth, to see the vermin, to see the disrespect, to see the neglect, to see that it's not maintained and it's not as beautiful as it should be, and it doesn't express who Malcolm X was. But we're going to change all that. And I could think of no better way to celebrate this day than to come out here this morning and thank you to those who came and swept and picked up garbage and threw away bottles and cans. And then those who came behind and planted these beautiful flowers that we have. So I'm glad we were able to do that today, but we got to keep that going, and we got to make sure that this place gets the respect that it deserves. So I'm going to get off the mic because y'all didn't come here to hear me. Okay, so we got some libations being poured. What would this be without libations? We are. All right, indigo. All right. Thank you so much.
This is the setup.
So, just one thing before the libations are poured, I wanted us to just think on our sister Valerie here, her stepmother, Miss Ernestine Bradley, who was a deaconess at Canaan Baptist Church. At Canaan Baptist Church, passed away earlier today. And we're so sorry.
Wow.
Our condolences to you. Cornelius lost his brother. Our condolences to you. And not so long ago, someone shared with me that our dear Paul Mooney has passed. So we want to have a moment. We want to have a moment of silence. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Cornell. We thank our Mother, Father, Creator for giving us the breath of life today, and we say Ashe. We thank our Mother, Father, Creator for giving us the basic essentials that sustain our lives: air, fire, earth, water, and we say Ashe. We thank our ancestors, those great kings and queens of ancient chemists who gave us science, mathematics, religion, philosophy, architecture, which all civilizations were built. They go by many names: Akhenaten, Imhotep, Ramses, Queen Time, Queen Nzinga, and we say Ashe. We thank our ancestors who survived the Middle Passage. We call on those bones that line the Atlantic Ocean, and we say Ashe. We thank our warriors, revolutionaries, who fought for our freedom and liberation in Haiti, Cuba, Brazil, and throughout the entire diaspora, and we say Ashe. As we gather here today, we celebrate the life and legacy of Malcolm X El-Hajj Malik El-Shahbaz. He taught us the importance of fighting for self-determination and advancing our struggle under the umbrella of human rights. May we continue his legacy and inspiration from his principles and learning his values and convictions. We call forth our ancestors who serve as our army and spiritual warriors. We ask for their protection against this pandemic and ensure that justice is met when unarmed Black men and Black women are killed by police. May we be the ones to fill the shoes of our ancestors. May we be the ones to move forward with no fear in our call for reparations. May we hold as our collective truth that Black life is priceless. May we stand firm in our love and conviction and pillar be our strength. Using the principles of the Nguzo Saba and calling on the principles of Ma'at. May we seek truth, justice, harmony, order, balance, reciprocity, and propriety. May you be someone to bring hope. May you be someone to bring love. More importantly, may you be someone to make revolution. So let it be written, so let it be done. Ashe Obara, Ashe Obara, Ashe Obara. Thank you, sister.
Okay, we're gonna have a selection now. You know, this is the baddest man on the planet. And we call him Dr. Mannan Satchmo. And y'all are gonna hear why we call him that. He's just fantastic. He's so humble. You know, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on this. You know, this man holds several degrees. Very educated, intellectual, a musician, and a good Muslim, and a good Christian. Okay, because I learned that too. And you know, every Saturday, every Saturday, since we learned of this pandemic, he has been at Malcolm Shahbaz Masjid, giving out groceries to our families in this community every Saturday without fail. When we started it was at 11 a.m. But people were lining up. They were outside earlier waiting for us. And he said, no, y'all have to get here earlier. Y'all get here earlier so that they're not out there in the elements. And that's what we do. And I see a lot of my club members out here who have been volunteering. And I just applaud you for that because you brought us through and still bringing us through. And though this is not political, I see some elected officials out there. They need food to keep that pantry going. Okay?
All praises due to God. More praises due. We're due to on a clear day.
Send this one out not only in honor of the beautiful weather, but in honor of our sister Miss Cordell, who we know is going to be, she's going to win, right?
Cordell Clear.
That's right.
This is a clear day.
On a clear day, rise and look around you. Yes, you'll see just who you are. On that clear day, how it will astound you. That the glow of your being outshines every star. You feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can hear from far and near the things you never heard before. On that clear day, on that clear day, we're gonna see forever and ever and evermore. Yeah.
On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you'll see who you are. On a clear day, how it will astound you, yeah. That the glow of your being outshines every star. You'll feel part of every mountain, sea, and shore. You can see the truth forever, ever, evermore. Oh, on that clear day. On that clear day, you can see forever and ever and evermore.
Shut up, shut up, beep, shut up, beep, pop. Should do your way, no matter Bobo, do you know,
Richard Clemens on the piano. Over the door, Richard, yeah. This is Melissa Slocum on the bass. Yeah, it's coming up, warming up on the drums. Say it for him.
Rise and look around you, and you'll see all the beauty you can see near or far.
On that clear day, how the will stand you, yeah, that the glow of your being outshines every star.
Yes, we're part of every mountain, sea, and shore. We can hear from far and near all the things we never heard before.
And on that clear day,
on that clear day,
on that
cordial clear day,
you can see forever.
you can see forever.
To see forever.
You can see forever.
You can see forever and ever.
Forever and ever and ever. You can see forever and ever.
Give it up. Stop them in there. I'm going to holler a little bit. So I think I saw the esteemed senator in the house. Oh, there you go.
Oh, wow.
There you go. Yeah, that's okay. But I know you have a couple of things to bring us. Okay, so let's bring it. Come on.
No. Good afternoon, everyone. 96 years today. You know, when I think of Malcolm X, I just think of truth. Truth on behalf of black people everywhere. That's what I think about. And so I had to be here. So many I see County Leader Keith Wright, and so many leaders here with us. The Harlem political family is here today because we all understand the importance of Malcolm X, not only for civil rights and human rights, but also political rights. And I am going to read a little chapter from a speech he gave in 1964 when Fannie Lou Hamer was trying to get seated in the Mississippi delegation. They gave a speech in Harlem at the Williams Institutional CME Church, with the audience being 1/3 white, Cornell, to speak the truth. And so I'm going to do a little bit of his truth speaking, and then I'm going to give you a proclamation on behalf of my office. So he starts. Reverend Joseph Coles, Mrs. Hamer, Fannie Lou Hamer, honored guests, brothers and sisters, friends and enemies. Not always shout out the enemies, all the haters. Also, CBS and the FBI and the CIA. Just because he knows they were there. Want to give them a shout out. They here too right now. Shout out to the FBI and the CIA. I couldn't help but be very impressed at the outstart when the Freedom Singers were singing the song Ojinga Odinga, because Ojinga Odinga is one of the foremost freedom fighters on the African continent. At the time, he visited in Atlanta, Georgia. I think he was then the Minister of Home Affairs in Kenya. But since Kenya became a republic last week and Jomo Kenyatta ceased being the Prime Minister and became the President, the same person you are singing about, Ojinga Odinga, is now Kenyatta's Vice President. He is the #2 man in the Kenya government. The fact that you would be singing about him to me is quite significant. 2 or 3 years ago, this wouldn't have been done. 2 or 3 years ago, most of our people would choose to sing about someone who was, passive and meek and humble and forgiving. As many of us know, Malcolm X was always apt to talk about the Negroes who did not stand up for our rights. He's not meek. Ojinga Odinga is not passive. He's not humble. He's not nonviolent, but he is free. Ojinga Odinga is vice president under Jomo Kenyatta, and Jomo Kenyatta was considered to be the organizer of the Mau Mau. I think you mentioned the Mau Mau in that song, and if you analyze closely those words, I think you'll have the key to how straightened the situation out in Mississippi. How to straighten the situation out in Mississippi. And the nations of Africa are truly independent, and they will be truly independent because they're going about it in the right way. The historians will give Prime Minister, or rather President Kenyatta and the Mau Mau their rightful role in African history. They'll go down as the greatest African patriots and freedom fighters that the continent ever knew. And they will be given credit for bringing about the independence of many of the existing independent states on that continent right now. There was a time when their image was negative, but today they're looked upon with respect, and their chief is the president and their next chief is the vice president. I have to take time to mention that because, in my opinion, not only in Mississippi and Alabama, but right here in New York City, you and I can best learn how to get real freedom by studying how Kenyatta brought it to his people in Kenya and how Odinga helped him and the excellent job that was done by the Mau Mau freedom fighters. In fact, that's what we need in Mississippi. In Mississippi, we need a Mau Mau. In Alabama, a Mau Mau. In Georgia, a Mau Mau. And right here in Harlem, we need a Mau Mau. Now, why do I read that little passage? Because Valerie Joe Bradley told me to, but outside of that reason, it's important to know that there are lessons to be learned from the black diaspora worldwide. There are things that are happening around the world, and if you are a learned man, like Malcolm X was, who learned it in jail, he didn't have to go to any schools for it. He just decided to himself take it upon himself to actually know stuff and fight for his people. And that's why we're here today. We're here today because, the mathematics. No, we're here today because the man just decided, even with the past, By the way, we pass a lot of bills to try to say everyone deserves a second chance. He is the shining example of second chances because he came out of incarceration and lit the world on fire. And so I am proud today to provide to Cordell Clear a proclamation from my office, Senator Brian Benjamin proclamation honoring Malcolm X on his 96th birthday and acknowledging that when truth gets spoken, our people get set free. Thank you very much.
And Brian, I guess he felt he read too much. He felt he read some, but I would like him to read one part of this.
I know sometimes people get tired of all the proclamation reading, so I was trying to.
But it's true, and it's about real things they did. So,
Right here. Okay. Whereas Malcolm X, otherwise known as Malcolm Little, or El-Haj Malik El-Shahbaz, was brought into this world on May 19, 1925, and would be 96 years old if he were with us today. He instilled the importance of community involvement and civil awareness and human rights around the world. This New York City native was influenced by the injustice that was present in and around his life. With his passion of learning, he led many of us in broadening our own horizons. Some may say his statements were controversial. We all know that they were necessary during such a troubling era where all people of color were prosecuted for the color of their skin and their upbringing. Malcolm X was a critical component to change America, especially the African American and the Muslim American communities. He is remembered for his thoughtfulness, compassion, and humanitarian spirit. His passion was shown through his participation in many civil rights and social justice movements around the world. His efforts have inspired love and respect from all who have the opportunity to meet him. And you can come to Harlem, USA on 110th Street and you will see Malcolm X Boulevard from here to 145th Street. For now, because I just signed a petition to extend that. I hope everyone else has signed the petition as well. We need every kid from this day till the next to know who Malcolm X was, and they need to be walking down and making a right on Malcolm X Boulevard. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And it's so important to be reminded of the greatness of Malcolm. You know, formal education is very good and it is important, but you have some formally educated fools walking among us. Malcolm educated himself, and he learned what was important to learn. He didn't have it fed to him. He learned what he wanted to learn, and he shared it with the rest of us. So that's just another great thing that Malcolm did. You don't have to think that you don't know what you're talking about or you can't get involved. We know what's wrong and we know what's right when we see it. We don't need anybody to tell us that. So when you see it, you can act on it like Malcolm did. And that's a great thing. We're happy that we had him in our past. You know, John Reddick, some of you know, was very involved in this process when it began. And you can't see a lot of it now, but there's some colorful pavers they chose and a design when they started this project. And it was supposed to imitate Islamic patterns. And you can see it still exists on the outer field. If you look just before the last planter, you'll see that some of it is still there. Some of it was destroyed and some of it is gone. But what John was going to do here for me today was call on all of you to act on behalf of this space. They were supposed to have an art installation here. They were supposed to provide benches here. They're supposed to maintain it with plantings. There are mosaic tiles beneath this area in the subway with Quranic verses on it. all of that was supposed to be maintained, and the community was supposed to be a part of the conversation moving forward on how to develop this plaza. It doesn't have an art installation. We wanted to talk about that being done, like we have at Ellington and Frederick Douglass. And it seems as if people have forgotten. So we have to make sure that they remember, and this is a very busy political year. All the elected officials, district leaders, everybody, candidates, whoever. We have a petition here that we want you to sign, and I'll read you the language, and we have one for everybody to sign. Sure. We're asking for a proper honoring of Malcolm X, a request by the Harlem community. Malcolm Shahbaz Plaza, 110th Street, Malcolm X Boulevard. We, the undersigned, request that the following agencies address the neglected maintenance and rodent infestation of Malcolm X Shahbaz Plaza and the restoration of damaged and removed mosaic panels commemorating Malcolm X in the MTA's 110th Street station below. The community also continues to press their desire and demand for implementation of proper seating and the public monument honoring Malcolm X that were promised components of the plaza's initial design implementation. Don't leave me yet, because I need you to sign, Brian. New York City Office of the Mayor, Bill de Blasio. New York City Department of Transportation, Margaret Forgione, First Deputy Commissioner. New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, Mitchell Silva, Commissioner. New York City Transit Authority, Sarah E. Feinberg, Interim President. Metropolitan Transit Authority, Arts and Design, Sandra Bloodworth, Director. More than 2 decades ago, that was more than 20 years. More than 20 years ago, it was that long. In an August 3rd, 2000 article, lauded the plaza's design. It was a big New York Times article, and it showed the design, and the designers were in front of it, and the role of elected officials and the above agencies played in coordinating their resources and talents toward creating the plaza as an improved public space. There was also an acknowledgement at the time of political and community support for advancing a public monument to Malcolm X on the site in the large triangular area, now planted, but created as an area set aside for that purpose. As the city currently searches for new sites and significant African Americans and people of color to commemorate, we would like to redirect the mayor and the above agencies to this site and the city's continued unfulfilled promise and commitment. So I wanted our senator to be among the first. There's the marker, please sign. Yeah, right on that. Please, and get a picture of this. Thank you so much. And we have clipboards on the table over here, right there. Pat has a clipboard. Please sign that in support of us getting those things for this community. And also, anyone who's not registered to vote, we're doing voter registration over there. You know, Malcolm said, the ballot or the bullet. We want to do the ballot. So if you're not registered, come over there and sign. I want to recognize, I'm sorry. Okay, Ron, yes, come on up here and do that, because I couldn't do that. But I want to recognize our county leader who was recognized earlier, and he's one of our readers. Come on, Keith Wright, and his co-leader, District Leader Wilma Brown, who's also a reader here today, and they're representing the Fred Samuels Democratic Club. And we have our state committee woman, Ms. Yasmine Hurston, also the CEO of Say Yaz Productions. She's also a reader here today. I have my own co-leader here in the 70th Assembly District Part A, Mr. William Allen, who's also a reader. And earlier we had representation from the 68th Assembly District. Keith Lilly was here, but he had to leave for a meeting. Oh, absolutely. And of course, we have been joined by our borough president, Gail Brewer, who I'm going to ask to come up and make, because I know she's late for something else that she has. You're good? Okay, thank you so much.
Oh my God, that's great.
Welcome, everybody. It's good to see all of you out here to celebrate 96 years of a fierce and righteous brother who loved black people. Oh, that if we all did. Anyway, I would like to acknowledge, she was here earlier, Sheena Kaufman of Parks and Recreation, who, when I wrote the commissioner and told him about the rats running rampant around this area, and also that there was trash and garbage everywhere, Parks and Recreation came out here last weekend, cleaned, baited for rats, closed up rat holes, and then they came back this morning and helped us clean up and get rid of garbage. But then I'd also like to thank Street Corner Resources, the young people of Street Corner Resources, who helped us plant these wonderful plants. It's not what it's going to be, but at least we can sit and enjoy what was intended at one time. And we are hoping that very soon that this area will be a source of memory and pride for our people. A couple of days ago, I came down here and I sat with the folks down here to let them know what we were going to be doing and whatever. And what was so amazing is that they did not know that this space was a space that was developed to commemorate Malcolm X, Shahbaz, Malik Shahbaz. And they were shocked to hear that. So I think at minimum, we need to get some signage in this area so that people know what this space is. But it has to go beyond signage. But at minimum, right now, we need some signage so that people know what it is. And I had some wonderful conversations with those brothers, and some of them are here right now, and some came and helped us plant. And I thank you for your assistance, and I'm depending on you to help police and keep this place up, because it shouldn't look like it looked when we came here this morning. It just shouldn't. Malcolm deserved better. We deserve better. So thank you for coming out to celebrate his birthday and to celebrate the launching of a movement to get this place restored, and for us not to just restore it, but to build back better. And after saying that, I'd like to now introduce our keynote speaker, A. Peter Bailey, who I just call Peter, and I worked together at Johnson Publishing Company, back in the 60s, in the late 60s. He worked here in New York at Ebony, and I worked in Chicago at Jet. And Mr. Johnson had a telephone line that you could call free, right? And Peter and I used to get on the phone every day, several times a day, and gossip. We would gossip, we would talk about everything, new plays, what political leaders were saying. Oh, I liked your article in Ebony. Oh, I liked your article in Jet. All of those kinds of things. And our friendship has remained over the years. When I moved to New York, Peter was then working with the National Black Theater Alliance. And it was Peter who introduced me to a lot of plays when he was working at Ebony Magazine, because he had like the art So he had the sexy job. He could get to go to all the plays, all the concerts, all the clubs. He knew all the celebrities. He knew all their gossip. In fact, he's planning to do a book, an outtake on interviews that didn't get in the interviews, which really were the juicy parts. Anyway, but Peter not only was a journalist, he was an activist. He was one of the co-founders of the Organization of Afro-American Unity, OAAU, which was the organization that Malcolm X formed after he left the Nation of Islam. And Peter was the editor of the organization's newsletter, which was called Blacklash. You know, they were talking about this white backlash. So they had a newsletter that was about Blacklash. I love that name. And he was a pallbearer at Brother Malcolm's funeral, which was held in a building that no longer stands. We let that one go. We lost that one, but we can't lose any more of our historic buildings and places that define us and tell us about our history. This brother allowed the funeral to be held at his church when no other church in Harlem would open its doors because they were afraid of bombings and threats and all of that kind of stuff. And it was a Church of God in Christ, Child's Memorial Church of God in Christ. It is now a parking lot. And we found out, Save Harlem now found out about it a little too late to be able to save it. But we need to have boots on the ground to help other organizations, to help other buildings like that church and other churches in this neighborhood and other kinds of buildings where our history is so entwined to remain. And Peter has some really good insights to bring to us today. I digressed for a minute. Thank you for indulging me. But anyway, Peter Bailey now lives in Washington, D.C. He's had an illustrious career as a professor at universities, as a columnist. He's an archivist. He has an incredible collection of Black memorabilia, Black literature. It's just incredible. And when we get on the phone, we just talk about all of those kinds of things. And so with no further elaboration, I'll let him come up and elaborate. A. Peter Bailey.
First, I want to thank Valerie for inviting me and everyone else. Okay. And everyone else who was involved in putting this event together.
We can't hear you.
Everybody else involved in putting this event together. I moved into Harlem in 1962, June 1962. And I'm telling y'all, I moved very grudgingly because I heard all these horror stories about Harlem. Man, you get shot at just walking down the streets. And I had believed them. I truly believed them. And so I was living down, I had been a student at Howard University, and I decided that rather than go back after my second year, rather than go right back to college, I was going to stay in New York for a semester and then go back for the spring semester. And just to see, after I'd been people in New York, I was a counselor with Fresh Air Fund. Okay, I got to remember to hold this up. So, no, I got it. Yeah, okay. So, then one day, one of my friends said, my mother's boyfriend lives just like that. That's good. Okay. And so, as I said, I was living down in, I think, in the West 80s. And one of my friends told me one day, he said his mother's boyfriend, who lived on 142nd Street between then Lenox Avenue and 7th Avenue, was living had an 8-bedroom apartment, railroad apartment, which he was paying $56 a month rent. It was one of those rent control places. And I said to myself, now, you know, for that kind of money, I would take a chance and move to Harlem. With that kind of rent, I'll take a chance and move to Harlem. So I moved in on a Friday evening, and on Saturday morning, instead of unpacking, we decided that we were going to walk around and, you know, just see Harlem. So I started at 142nd Street. The goal was to walk down to 125th Street. Got down to 125th, and then decided to keep going. We got it down around 116th Street. We saw a crowd gathering, and we were trying to figure out what's the crowd gathering. And someone said Malcolm X is going to speak. Now this is the first day my first full day in Harlem, and I said, Malcolm X. I had heard vaguely about him at the time, and of course what I had heard were all the horror stories. You know, he believed in violence, and he hated white people, and, you know, I'd heard all the major horror stories. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on with this. Like everybody else in West Line does not seem to be giving a hard time. So they said, so we said, why don't we hear what he got to say? And Brother Malcolm, he spoke, they had that wide sidewalk across the street from the mosque. And Brother Malcolm spoke that day for almost 3 hours. And by the time he finished speaking, I was a Malcolmite. Because I had never in my life heard anyone talk about the race situation in this country with such clarity and passion and knowledge. And there were two things he said that it particularly stuck in my mind. The first thing he said was that you need to get over this idea that white supremacy is just in the South. He said white supremacy is the dominant ideology in this country all over, not just in the South, with varying degrees of intensity, but it's throughout the entire country. Now that I had kind of heard before, you know, vaguely from, you know, when I was at Howard University, I heard a couple of people say that. Then the second thing he said that day was something that I had never heard in my life. I was 24 years old. I had never heard anyone talk about attacks on the mind. Brother Malcolm spent almost 45 minutes to an hour of that speech that day talking about psychological attacks on the mind of black folks. I had never heard that before. I had never heard anyone talk about that. Then I remember I grew up as a child in Tuskegee, Alabama. Wow. And we used to go downtown to go to the movie theater. And in Tuskegee, they didn't have like black folks sitting in the balcony. They had two complete theaters sitting side by side. And every Saturday from the time I was about 6 years old until I was about 13, my friends and I, we would go downtown to that segregated movie theater and sit there from like about 10 in the morning to about 4 in the afternoon, watching all kind of cartoons. But a lot of times they showed Tarzan movies. And this theater full of black kids sat there and cheered for Tarzan and Cheetah. We cheered for Tarzan and Cheetah, and they beat up about 30 or 40 African warriors. And that became my image of Africa. And I can remember growing up in Tuskegee, there were two things that would get you a sure fight. You call somebody black, and you call somebody African. If you call them either one of those things, that was a guaranteed fight. And so when Brother Malcolm talked about attacks on the mind, I began to realize all those things that I had heard growing up as a child in those movies, watching all those movies, all those Step and Fetches, you know, Scatman Crowder type movies, all of that stuff. I began to think about the attacks on the mind. I began to talk about the history things that we had never learned when you were talking about history. So after that, I became a Malcolm X supporter. And at that age, I was just getting ready to kind of come out of my Christianity. I was dropping my Christian upbringing as a Roman Catholic. I I was dropping my Christian upbringing, and so I was not ready to go into another religion, so I never became a member of the Nation of Islam. But wherever Brother Malcolm spoke in the New York area, I went and heard it. He spoke it all over this area, and wherever he went, spoke, I was there. And every time he mentioned a book, I would try to get that book and read it. He mentioned an article, anything like that, I would try to get it and read it. And that's how I became involved with him. Now, I still had not met him. I met him in January 1964. A friend of mine, at the time I was working at Time Inc. as an editorial reference clerk. And a friend of mine, she was working at NBC as an intern with NBC when they began to take black interns at NBC. And you know, both of those buildings are part of the Rockefeller Center complex. So we would sit down there and eat, and we met each other down there eating sometime breakfast and sometime lunch. And you know, she was I guess because as an intern, you know, she looked like a very, very proper young colored lady, you know. And so when she said to me one day, how would you like to be a part of the founding of a new black nationalist organization? I was kind of shocked. I said, she's a black nationalist? Because I, you know, just the way she dressed and everything. And of course I realized, she had to do it because she was an intern with NBC, so she had to dress that, you know, that way. So I said, yeah. She said, okay, well, I'll call you on Saturday morning and tell you where to meet and what time, and don't ask me any questions. So I said, okay. She called me Saturday morning. She told me what time, and then she told me that motel, I don't know if it's still there, but it's about 153rd Street and 8th Avenue, but it had a bad reputation. It was one of those places you could check in for 2 hours. So when she told me that we were going to be meeting there, I said, why are we going to be meeting in that place? I had heard some terrible things about that place, but I got there. It was on the ground. The meeting room was on the ground level. I went in. When I walked into the room, I saw Dr. John Henry Clark. He was there. John Oliver Killings, the author, was there. My friend was there, and her roommate was there, and there were about 8 other people that I did not know. So I sat down at the table, and then people, you know, were talking to each other and everything. And after I'd been there about 20 minutes, Brother Malcolm walked through the door. It was only when he walked through the door that I became aware that I was going to be a part of funding of a new organization with Brother Malcolm, and I was going to meet him for the first time. I had no idea until he walked through that door. And when he walked through the door, because I almost fell off my chair, you know, and he came and sat down, introduced himself, and he began to tell us about this new organization. But he already selected the name, the Organization of Afro-American Unity. So he was naming it after the Organization of African Unity, which had been founded in 1963, the year before. Founded in 1963. So our organization was going to be called the Organization of Afro-American Unity, and that's how I got involved with it. And then we went on and we had meetings, you know, regular meetings, you know, planning meetings, and we were announced publicly on June 28, 1964. It took us that long because Brother Malcolm was doing quite a bit of traveling during those days, carrying out his international agenda, which was to basically take the United States before the UN Commission on Human Rights. And he had to get African nations to support him in that. So when it got time to talk about various, you know, responsibilities everyone was going to do with the new organization, the youth committee, the education committee, the political committee, the economics committee, the self-defense committee, all these different committees, and he wanted a newsletter, and no one volunteered to do the newsletter. Now, at that time, I had absolutely no idea that I was going to be a journalist. I had thought about being, my thing was to be a teacher. I wanted to teach history. And so I volunteered to do the newsletter. And I will never forget, that was my introduction to journalism. Brother Malcolm is the reason that I became a journalist. And on the very first issue of the newsletter, besides all the other stuff I had learned, I got a direct way of seeing Brother Malcolm as a master teacher. Because at that time I wasn't thinking of that concept of the master teacher, but that's what he was. In the very first issue of the newsletter that I had to write was about the 1964 uprising in Harlem, in which that policeman shot that 16-year-old boy and killed him. and it caused the Harlem Uprising in 1964. And so my first article I ever wrote as a journalist in the first issue of our newsletter was about that whole situation. Brother Malcolm at the time was in Africa. And of course, the New York City newspaper, some of them was claiming that he was at some hideaway over in Queens, directing the uprising. That he was at some hideaway over in Queens directing. I mean, those that New York Journal America, some of those newspapers that are not around today. But that's what they were saying. But he would call back to the office. We were in the Hotel Teresa, 125th Street. Our office was in the Hotel Teresa on the second floor. And he was calling back to get an update as to what was going on. So when it was my turn to speak, I was reading him what I had written. And I said, eyewitnesses to the murder. And Brother Malcolm stopped me. And he said, no, Peter, you can't say murder. Because murder and murderer are legal terms. But you can only describe him as that when he's convicted. And we know he's going to be acquitted. And when he's acquitted, he can actually sue you for calling him a murderer. And with the organization, he said, call him a killer. And it's a killing because he's a killer, and it's a killing no matter what the circumstances. So this brother, Leonard Seed was his name, but he was the production man of the newsletter. We had run off about 500 or 600 copies of the newsletter. So we sat down, we didn't have money to run all those things again in the old mimeograph machines where you had to turn the handle to run off. So we decided rather than throw 500, 600 sheets of paper away, we sat down and scratched out the word murder and wrote killing in it. And then we distributed those newsletters out. But that was Brother Malcolm, the teacher. And I learned very much from that. And because sure enough, when that cop was acquitted, he sued Martin Luther King's organization and CORE for putting out stuff calling him a murderer. So again, Brother Malcolm, the master teacher in action. And very proud. He used to tell us also, when we were having a meeting, and someone standing at the meeting saying, we got to go box the subways. He said, stop the meeting and put that person out, because 9 times out of 10, that person is a plant. And if you discuss that for even 2 minutes, they can pick everybody up for conspiracy, and though they know they have a weak case, they can keep you tied up in the courts for a year and a half, fighting the case. And then when you're found innocent, then they can claim, see, we told you that the system works. You can get justice in the system. So that's the kind of thing I learned from him. And then I really especially try to talk to some of the younger folks, man. You can't just go around saying everything. You don't want to get yourself in trouble and get in trouble for just something you said, because they can get you legally with that. But that's just some of the kind of things that I learned from Brother Malcolm. And so I was in the Audubon that day, and one of my personal memories is that the Saturday before, February the 20th, the day before the assassination, I had written a newsletter in which I was saying, despite everything that's happened with Brother Malcolm, the organization is still behind him. I don't know what I said in that newsletter to this very day, but whatever it was, when Brother Malcolm came to the Audubon that day, this is February the 20th, he came by the Hotel to do something there, and I was still there. So I showed him a copy of the press release that I had written. And he said, Brother Peter, please don't distribute this. So I said, okay, and I put it away. I didn't question it because I know what had happened. We talked about eyewitness to the killing. So I put it away, and of course to this day I don't know what happened to those things. I never saw any of them again. I put them in a corner, but I don't know whatever happened to them. But and this is what I always tell people about Brother Malcolm as a person, not only as a leader and a teacher, but as a person. The next day, when I was already at the Audubon Ballroom when he came in, I was in that little room space that you had when you walked into the Audubon. And he said, Brother Peter, when you get a chance, come backstage. I need to talk to you. So I said, okay. I said, I'll be back in a few minutes. So about 5 or 6 minutes later, I went backstage. Now here's this brother under all this pressure. The weekend before, his home had been firebombed, which put his whole family in jeopardy because his wife and his children were in the home at the time of the firebombing. The week before that, he had been banned from France. He had been invited to speak at the OAAU in Paris. And when he was coming from London, when he got off the plane in Paris, they put him on a plane. They wouldn't even let him come into the airport. They put him on a car, drove him down to another plane, and he had to fly back to London. Now those two things had happened. And I tell young people when I speak to them, I said, now here's this brother under all this pressure, all of this pressure, and he's concerned about my feelings. He said, I know you put a lot of work in putting that release together. I hope you understand why I asked you tonight to sleep. And I always make sure that I tell young people that. He was under all this pressure, and he was concerned about my feelings. And I said to him, of course I understand. I said, I just put him off to the side. And then we talked for about 5 or 6 more minutes. And I had, by the way, I had seen an article in the New York Times that morning by this organization called the Deacons for Defense and Justice. These are some brothers down in, I think it was down in Louisiana or Mississippi. But they had decided they were tired of black people who were just peacefully demonstrating being attacked by the white supremacists. So they were going to form an armed guard for the demonstrators. And they had this, I think it's still the greatest name came out of the civil rights era, called the Deacons for Defense and Justice. And so I showed Brother Malcolm the article, and I saw it in the New York Times that morning. So I clipped it out, and I showed it to him, and he said, oh, that's what I'm talking about, self-defense. That's what they were talking about. And me and myself and 4 other people back there, we talked about it. And then he said, then anybody recognized Reverend Milton Galamis, who was supposed to come to our meeting that day and make it and help to raise some money for clothing for his children, because everything had been burned up in the firebomb. So he was going to make an appeal to the people at the Audubon that day on February 21st. And so he asked which one of us who was backstage, he said, you know what Reverend Galamis looks like? I said, I know what he looks like. So he told me to go out front and wait on Reverend Galamis and bring him backstage. And that's where I was when I heard Brother Malcolm say, Assalamu alaikum. And the next thing I heard was shots. And I got up and I ran into the Audubon ballroom, and I ran, after all the shooting and everything stopped, I ran into the Audubon and I jumped up on the stage, and I saw him laying on the stage gasping. And I saw all these, his shirt was open, and I saw all these bullet holes, in his body. And that to me, of course, was another one of those lasting memories. But as I told Valerie, on his birthday, I don't want to talk about the assassination. All I want to talk about his birthday is to celebrate his life and what he did and what he left us. So what I'm going to do now is read to you a couple of things that he said in 1964 that are still just as relevant today. Just as relevant today as it was when he said them in 1964. And he was mainly talking about the OAAU. Oh man, I tell you what. I bought 2 quotes that he made in 1964. And when you hear them, brothers and sisters, you would think that he could have made them yesterday. Here's one. We must establish all over the country schools of our own to train our children to become scientists and mathematicians. To become scientists and mathematicians. Wait a minute, let me make sure I get it. Wait a minute. I'm sorry, I was reading the second one. I'm going to read the first one first, then I'll go to the second one. The adult Afro-American community should immediately get together and put up a guardian system that any black child in trouble or who has a problem can come to them for shelter. If any more Afro-American children are shot down in the streets of New York City, adults will have to share the blame. Remember that, folks. He said this in 1964, and of course he was referring to the Harlem, what had happened to that 15-year-old boy. And I wonder if he said adults, if any more children are shot down, if we don't do what he said, organize a guardian system and to work with our children so they can come and they get in trouble and need help or have a problem, have something set up. And now I know there are individuals who are doing that, but I'm talking about a national thing. We have not done that. We have not done that to this very day. The second one, he says, we must establish all over the country schools of our own to train our children to become scientists and mathematicians. We must realize the need for for adult education and for job training programs that will emphasize a changing society in which automation plays the key role. You hear that line? In which automation plays the key role. But Malcolm wrote this in 1964 saying that we must get on top of this technology. We must get on top of this technology. And of course, I'm one of the people who haven't come to this very day. In 2021, May 19, 2021, I still do not know how to send emails and text. I'm completely out of it. I have young folks, former students of mine, who do anything that have to do dealing with the community. But Brother Malcolm was visionary. He saw this in 1964. And he said, we must realize the need for adult education and for job retraining programs that will emphasize a changing society in which automation plays a very key role. We intend, talking about the OAAU, we intend to use the tools of education to help raise our people to an unprecedented level of excellence and self-help through their own efforts. End of quote. Both of those quotes apply as much in 2021 as they did in 1964. And the unfortunate thing is that we as a group of people have not paid attention to what the brother was saying. We have not. To me, and I'll say this very straightforwardly, to me, we have proven unworthy, not individuals, people, because individual people have done everything to live up to that. But as a group of people, we have proven, as far as I'm concerned, unworthy of the sacrifices made by Brother Malcolm and the others who gave their lives for us in the 1960s. And we have proven unworthy because we have not built a strong national organization that can do the things that he's advocating in those two pieces. Now in a third piece, which I will not try to read, but I'll just kind of summarize. In 1964, I think it was in early December, 37 young people from Mississippi were sent to Harlem specifically to meet Brother Malcolm. They were sent by what I understand, they were sent by CORE. Not CORE, Students Nonviolent Corps, SNCC. They were sent by SNCC. And they were sent to Harlem specifically to meet with Brother Malcolm. And he said, he told those youngsters, and this talks about his international thing, that you should not, we're going to set it up. He said, this country only responds to outside pressure. Black folks make progress only when this country is afraid of its image abroad. And so what we're going to do is to develop it in such a way that this will force the federal government to move. Because you know, the United States federal government never moved on anything, any type of brutality against our people until they were forced to. Eisenhower, when those kids were down on Little Rock were being attacked, Eisenhower didn't move until one day somebody showed him the front page of the Russian newspaper and all the photographs of what was happening to those children in Little Rock. And the next day he nationalized the Arkansas National Guard to protect those youngsters. John F. Kennedy in Birmingham, can't do nothing. That's a state thing. Can't do nothing. Until one day those pictures got out of those police dogs fighting those young people and the fire hoses that we put on them. The next day, Kennedy nationalized the Alabama National Guard. And what Brother Malcolm was saying, this is basically the way the federal government only moves. And that's why he spent much of the last year of his life pushing an international program that will eventually take the United States government before the UN Commission on Human Rights. and accused it of being either unable or unwilling to protect the lives and property of black people in this country. That's what he was doing most of the time. He traveled around the world, especially in Africa. In May 1964, he had meetings, and I'm telling you folks, I'm not talking about you meet somebody at a reception, you say hello, you shake hands for a couple minutes, and you move on. He had audiences ranging from 1.5 hours to 3 hours with the following African leaders in May 1964. President Nzikwe of Nigeria, President Nasser of Egypt, President Nkrumah of Ghana, President Kenyatta of Kenya, President Nyerere of Tanzania, President Toure of Guinea, and Prime Minister Obote of Uganda. He had audiences with them. And as a result of those audiences, in July 1964, he was invited to the OAU, Organization of African Unity meeting, as an observer. Not as a participant, but as an observer, and he went there and he took this 8-page document that he gave them, saying why it was extremely important for closer connections to be between black people in this country and black people on the continent. He was the premier prime Pan-Africanist. And in the OAU 1964 OAU meeting, which was held in Cairo, Egypt, they issued I don't know how many of you are aware of this, they issued a resolution condemning discrimination in the United States that had never happened before and it has never happened since. And I think that's when the U.S. government said, he's got to go. I really believe that. He got them to issue this resolution condemning discrimination. Now, it was not the world's most militant resolution, but it had never been done before and it's never been done since. And all of this is the work of Brother Malcolm. When he was in Kenya, they were celebrating Kenyatta Day because he was the leader of the Mau Mau. There were about 5 people on stage with Kenyatta. Guess who one of the people were? Brother Malcolm. On stage with Jomo Kenyatta. And they had invited him to be on stage, not just attending his event, but to be on stage when it was going on. So he was really making some movement. John Henry Clark told me later that he had already got 6 African countries to agree to take the case before the UN Commission on Human Rights. And you know, considering the things that were going on, he could easily have got, the Russians or somebody like that to do that. But he didn't want that. He wanted that resolution to come from African countries. And that's what he fought for, and that's what he was working on. And I think that played a major role in the government's willingness to go after him, and eventually end up what we all know happened. So I just want to, I tried to give you some observations about him as a person. And from a personal perspective, and what he was to us as a people. Now, I believe that what we are doing here today, and what is being done in other places around the country, we've got to get in contact with each other, so we can come up with some kind of major national way to celebrate Brother Malcolm's birthday. Not just a few of us in each city together, but some kind of national way to celebrate his birthday. Because that brother gave us a lot. If he's 39 years old, he's gone from us, taken away from us. But he was a powerful inspiration. He was
let's make sure it doesn't.
We should make sure that our young people know, and really know, not what they see in television and on the internet, but that we provide solid, concrete ways of teaching him to our young people. It is up to us, folks. I tell people all the time, it is a waste of time for us to try to get the public school system in this country to teach our history, because they're not going to do it. They're going to pick out selected things that they will do, but they're not going to teach us. The Jewish people in the country understand that. All they make sure is that they don't be teaching anything they consider anti-Semitic. But to teach Jewish history, they teach their children themselves. Because they know the public school is not ever going to do it. The Catholics, that's why the Catholics started to grow with the school system. And if the white Catholics felt as though the public school system is not going to teach, the Catholic history in this public school, now they're not going to ever teach ours. It is up to our organizations, our charity organizations, our sororities, our churches, our fraternities, our business organizations, our civic organizations. It is up to those organizations to make teaching our history a part of their agenda. Not something you do every now and then, but an active part of their agenda. When they have that national conferences and anything else, teaching our history should be always a part of that agenda. I think that's the only way that we're going to get our history taught correctly in this society. We're not going to get it by fighting, wasting a lot of our time to try to get the public school system to do it, because it's not going to happen. It's a waste of time. All we can do is make sure they're not teaching anything that's anti-black. But that's it. They're not going to teach about Martin Delaney and those kind of folks. It's not going to happen. And to expect them to say it's a waste of our time, we need to do it ourselves. I will close by providing a quote that Brother Malcolm, that I came across, and I just came across this quote recently, but it's powerful. And it again shows you his belief in the importance of gaining knowledge. There's a quote about gaining of knowledge, which I hesitate to use sometimes because it came from James Madison, who was a slave-owning president of the United States. But one day after I moved to Washington, D.C., I went to the James Madison building, which is a part of the whole Smithsonian complex. And on the front of that building it said, "Knowledge will forever govern ignorance." And the people who mean to govern themselves must arm themselves with the power that knowledge gives. I said, now that quote is so important that even though it's a slave-owning president who made it, I gotta put it out there. Because it shows you the importance. And Brother Malcolm understood that better than anyone else I'd ever met in my life, the importance of acquiring knowledge. And I recently came across a quote that was attributed to him that expresses that. It says, if your mind is armed, you are never unarmed. You hear what he's saying? If your mind is armed, you are never unarmed. And we have to understand that and guide that, teach our children that, and teach and provide them with the kind of knowledge, serious knowledge they need to continue the struggle and making sure that our interests and everything is promoted in this society and this world in which we live. That's very important. And as I said before, to me, when I talk about young people, about Brother Malcolm, I say he was a great human being. He was a great black man. He was a great Pan-Africanist, and he was a master teacher. Thank you very much. I just want you all to know that it's really good to be back here. I moved out of Harlem in '86, and I usually back up here at least once a year, usually twice a year. But this last year, 2020, because of the damn virus, was the first time I had spent at least a few days in Harlem in a single year since I was 24 years old. But so I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to Valerie for inviting me and making me aware of this event, and to be able to still move around at the age of 83.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was so enlightening, and thank you. Thank you for coming all the way to tell us that. While you're still here, I want our borough president to come up. She was commenting to me while you were speaking, and I'm sure she may want to share some of that commentary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. I have to say that for those of us
who love Harlem, love history, love what Save Harlem is doing, what Cordell's doing, what the club is doing. You put it all together. And thank you very much. The only speech I can think of, I remember when David Dinkins was first elected, and this guy came from South Africa. And he was, of course, the president of South Africa. I'd just gotten out, and he spoke for 3 hours in the hot sun at Gracie Mansion. And I sort of like Malcolm X. They're two great men, and they talk a lot. But they have a lot to say. So thank you for sharing that. That was beyond phenomenal from all of us. Thank you. I'm glad it's recorded. I'm glad it's recorded so that young people can hear it. Thank you, Valerie Jo Bradley, for knowing such a great person. I'm simply, as a borough president, going to say a couple of things. I think that bringing the Plaza back is incredibly important, and doing it with historians, people who care about the history and who are interested in landmarking is the right thing to do with the mosques and the clubs and the people. That's the way that you need to do. Nothing in this city is done by itself. So I'm here to help on that regard. I will tell you there was another park that was in bad shape, not named after somebody as great as Malcolm X. And the work that was done with natural plantings was such that every single rat left. So the issue is to figure out what the right horticulture is, and then what the signage should be so that young people know why they're here and what this park needs. And then to have constant education forums here with this kind of joining so that people have the history, because it's not going to be taught in the schools, it's going to come from all of us. So congratulations, it's always an honor to be here. So just like everyone else, we have a Shahbaz Plaza Cleanup Crew Certificate of Appreciation, and it's for the 96th birthday of Malcolm X. All of the volunteers have cleaned and restored Shahbaz Plaza, which honors his life and work. On the 19th day of May 2021, Gail Brewer, our president. But more importantly, what I am committed to do is to work with you on making sure this isn't just a plaza that nobody knows what it is, but to have the signage, the plantings, the support, the readings, the poems, the spoken word, and the music that goes with activation and programming in a public plaza. So I think this is a great project. I look forward to working with you, and thank you very, very much for including me. I love this project, particularly because it honors such a great man, and listening to Mr. Bailey makes it even more special. Thank you very much.
Let's have another round of applause for Borough President Gail Brewer. And next, we're going to hear from our county leader, former assemblyman, the one and only, Chief L.T. Wright. All right now?
Thank you, Madam District Leader Cordell Clear. If I could ask District Leader Wilma Brown Phillips to join me up here, because we have a joint reading. So I hope everyone was able to understand and listen and pay attention to our keynote speaker, Dr. Peter Bailey, because I hope we also, when we go home, we process, understand, digest all that he was saying. February 1965, I was 10 years old. I remember the day that Malcolm was murdered, when he was killed. I forget the other words that Dr. Bailey was saying. And it was a piece of my heart that went out. I was 10 years old. 10 years old. So I applaud Cordell Clear and all of our other organizations that are bringing us together. For years, I want to applaud also the December 12th movement. For many, many years, the December 12th movement would walk down 125th Street and shut down all the stores. All the stores. So I want to thank the December 12th. So we are here as a community to carry on and remember the messages of Malcolm X. I remember when I was a kid, Malcolm X, I used to see him on the street corner of 125th Street, along with folks like Eddie Pork Chop Davis, Charles Kenyatta. Give me some other name. Give me some other. Anyway. So I'm honored to be here today, and I can't forget this day because I remember 1992, May 19th, 1992, Malcolm's birthday, when I announced my first campaign for public office. And it also happens to be the birthday of the woman that I married 34 years ago. So she's not here. So District Leader Brown Phillips, would you come on up, please? So it is our pleasure to read a letter from Malcolm that he wrote from Mecca to his assistants in Harlem. When he was in Mecca, Al-Hajj Malik El-Shahbaz wrote a letter to his loyal assistants in Harlem from his heart. Never have I witnessed such sincere hospitality and overwhelming spirit of true brotherhood as is practiced by people of all colors and races here in this ancient holy land, the home of Abraham, Muhammad, and all other prophets of the Holy Scriptures. For the past week, I have been utterly speechless and spellbound by the graciousness I see displayed all around me by people of all colors. I have been blessed to visit this holy city of Mecca. I've made my 7 circuits around Kaaba, led by a young Mutaf named Muhammad. I drank water from the well of the Zamzam. I ran 7 times back and forth between the hills of Mount Al-Safa and Al-Marah. I have prayed in the city of Mina, and I have prayed on Mount Arad. There were tens of thousands of pilgrims from all over the world. They were of all colors, from blue-eyed blondes to black-skinned Africans. But we were all participating in the same ritual, displaying a spirit of unity and brotherhood that my experiences in America have led me to believe never could exist between white and non-white. America needs to understand Islam because this is the one religion that erases from its society the race problem. Throughout my travels in the Muslim world, I have met, talked to, and even eaten with people who in America would have been considered white. But the white attitude was removed from their minds by the religion of Islam. I have never before seen sincere and true brotherhood practiced by all colors together, irrespective of their color. You may be shocked by these words coming from me, but on this pilgrimage, what I have seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange But on this pilgrimage, what I have seen and experienced has forced me to rearrange much of my thought patterns previously held and to toss aside some of my previous conclusions. This was not too difficult for me. Despite my firm convictions, I have always been a man who tries to face facts and to accept the reality of life as new experiences and new knowledge unfold. I have always kept an open mind, which is necessary to the flexibility that go hand in hand with every form of intelligent search for the truth. Despite the past 11 days here in the Muslim world, I've eaten from the same plate, drunk from the same glass, and slept on the same rug, while praying to the same God, with fellow Muslims, whose eyes were the bluest of blue, whose hair was the blondest of blonde, and whose skin was the whitest of white. And in the words and the deeds of the white Muslims, I felt the same sincerity that I felt among the black African Muslims of Nigeria, Sudan, and Ghana. I hand it over to District Leader Wilma Brown.
We were truly all the same, brothers, because their belief in one God had removed the white from their minds, the white from their behavior, and the white from their attitude. I concede from this that perhaps if white Americans could accept the oneness of God, then perhaps, too, they could accept in reality a oneness of man, and cease to measure and hinder and harm others in terms of their difference in colors. With racism plaguing America like an incurable cancer, the so-called Christian white American heart should be more receptive to a proven solution to such destructive problems. Perhaps it could be in time to save America from imminent disaster. The same destruction brought upon Germany by racism that eventually destroyed the Germany themselves. Each hour here in the Holy Land enables me to have greater spiritual insights into what is happening in America between black and white. The American Negro never can blame for his racial animosities. He is only reacting to 400 years of the conscious racism of the, of the experiences that I have had with them. That the whites of younger generations in the colleges and universities will see the handwriting on the walls, and many of them will turn to the spiritual path of truth. The only way left to America to ward off the disaster that racism inevitably must lead to. Never have I been so highly honored. Never have I been made to feel more humble and unworthy. Who would believe the blessings that have been heaped upon American Negro? A few nights ago, a man would be called in America a white man, a United Nations diplomat, an ambassador, a companion of kings, gave me his hotel suite, his bed. Never would I have even thought of dreaming that I would ever be a recipient of such honor. Honors that in America would be bestowed upon king, not a Negro. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the world. Sincerely, Ali Haji Malik Al-Shahbaz, Malcolm X. Peace. Peace. Yes, yes.
That was wonderful. And that was, because you know I give an introduction, that was the Madam Leader, Wilma Phillip Brown. It's all love, everybody. We're a family. We were going to break it up a little bit, but I know some of you have been here quite a bit, and I want to hear from you. So I want to hear, our next reader is going to be Yasmine, Cornelius, Hurston. Yasmine, I think I may have mentioned this earlier, was one of the people who was in the original meetings that we had about this space all those years ago. And you know, it really is a shame because I can't believe it's that long. I'm not that old. But, you know, I'm just glad she's here today because this just makes me, it reinvigorates the feeling within me that we do have to just make sure we get this space properly cared for and properly represented. So Yasmine, if you could come up and read for us, please.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Okay. I mean, I think that a lot of words has been said. I grew up hearing them all my life. But I want to first give a special thank you to Dr. Bailey for giving us this piece of history that we sometimes may take for granted. I want to first just say that. Can we just acknowledge Dr. Bailey one more time? Thank him for sharing his moments with us, the living history. And I also want to thank Valerie Jo Bradley, who is also living history in our community. I love her dearly, and she is a Mau Mau of today, so thank you. And Cordell's sister, you know, we've been doing this for a minute. So I'm gonna read, I don't necessarily know from the aspect of what I'm reading from. I'm sorry I can't tell you the exact source, but I think I like what I'm about to read, and I hope you all do as well. This is from To Malcolm Speaks. And this is what he is basically speaking about his association with the Nation of Islam. Can everybody hear me first? Because you know I'm about to go in. Can everybody hear me? Brothers and sisters in the back, can you all hear me? Okay. The whole dog world wants peace. When I was in Africa last year, I was deeply impressed by the desire of our African brothers for peace. But even they agreed that there can be no peace without freedom from colonialism, foreign domination, oppression, and exploitation. The God of peace and righteousness is about to set up his kingdom of peace and righteousness here on this earth. Knowing that God is about to establish his righteous movement, Mr. Muhammad is trying to clean up our morals and qualify us to enter into this new righteous nation of God. You see, the American so-called Negroes must recognize each other as brothers and sisters, stop carrying guns and knives to harm each other, stop drinking whiskey, taking dope, reefers, and even cigarettes. No more gambling. Save your money, stop fornication, adultery, and prostitution. Elevate the black woman, respect her, and protect her. Let us rid ourselves of immoral habits, and God will be with us to protect and guide us. Then we must form a platform that will be good for all of our own people as well as for others. As black people, we must unite. We must recognize and give intelligent, active support to our political leaders who fight for us unselfishly, sincerely, and fearlessly. But to prove their sincerity and their right for the support of the black masses, these leaders must first display fearlessness, intelligence, and unity among themselves. They must stop their public bickering with each other. I need to say that again. They must stop their public bickering with each other. They must stop attacking each other in front of the white man and for the benefit of the white man. If the black leaders must have differences of opinion, learn to go in the closet with each other. But when you come from behind closed doors, show a united front in the face of the one who is a common enemy to all of us. Mr. Muhammad has invited all of the leaders here today for that purpose. He wants our people united, but unity will never exist amongst the black masses as long as our leaders are not united. Thank you so much, everybody. Did she sound like she meant it? We do have to stop that, everyone. We have to stop that when that occurs. Use your energy for the greater enemy. Use your energy for the greater enemy. So we're gonna now hear from our, well, he's not the last, but he's my co-leader. William Anthony Allen from Schaumburg.
Thank you, my sister, my state committee woman, my district leader, county leader, colleagues, community, and I'm so honored to see Peter Bailey here. Thank you so much for bringing this scholar up here today and to be with us. And I'm glad it's being recorded because sometimes we have these historic moments, and Shoemaker and Andy, who are up here, who are community tourists, historians, it's so important. And sometimes we don't always capture these important moments. So I'm now honored to do a reading, and as this was handed to me earlier, Marshall.
It's just a little housekeeping. A gray Nissan? Is that what it is? Who has the gray Nissan? Somebody's trying to get out. That's, okay. Okay, she's coming.
At Menacing, where I grew up at, and learned my leadership skills at Menacing, and my counselors there were John Best, Taimu Best, Preston Washington, and Boza Rivers. And we had an annual oratorical contest that was named for Brother Malcolm. And I was honored to say that I remember who the winner was, because it was me. But I won, let me tell you why I won. I won because it was Boza Rivers. Boza Rivers, I didn't really know how to give a speech back then, and Boza Rivers was my coach. And he had us put a wine bottle cork in our mouths to enunciate properly. So sometimes if I sound like I'm not from Harlem, blame Boza Rivers. So I just want to be able to say that. We don't want any more leaders who are puppets or parrots for the white man. We want brave leaders as our spokesmen, who are not afraid to state our case, who can intelligently demand what we need, what we want, and what is rightfully ours. We don't want leaders that are beggars, who feel they must compromise with the enemy, and we don't want leaders who are selfish or greedy, who will sell us out for a few pieces of silver. A big election is coming up this year, Cornell. What kind of leaders do we want in that office? We want ones which ones will the black masses get behind? Mr. Muhammad has thousands of followers and millions of sympathizers. He will place his weight behind any fearless black leaders who will stand up and help the so-called American Negroes get complete and immediate freedom. If these black leaders are afraid that to be identified with us, they will irk the white man or lose the white man's favor or his support, then they can no longer expect the support of the black masses. They call us radical extremists. They call Jomo Kenyatta also a radical extremist. Tom Mbobo are moderate. It's only the white man's fear of men like Kenyatta that makes him listen to men like Mbobo. If it was not for the extremists, the white man would ignore the moderates. To be called a moderate in this awakening dark world today that is crying for freedom is to receive the kiss of death. As spokesmen or the leaders of the masses, for the masses are ready to burst the shackles of slavery, whether the moderates will stand up or not, we have many black leaders who are unafraid, especially when they know the black masses stand behind them. Many of them are qualified to represent us not only in this United States government, but could also represent us in this government as we given 100% citizenship and the opportunity for first-class participation. Or else we can get behind these same leaders in setting up an independent government of our own. We, the black masses, don't want these leaders to seek our support, coming to us representing certain political parties. They must come to us today as black leaders representing the welfare of black people. Amen.
Absolutely correct. That was absolutely. Was Malcolm ahead of his time or what? Or maybe he was right on time. We're the ones who are behind. Think about it. Yeah. Thank you so much, William. It's wonderful. Next, we're going to have who's reading. Oh, see somebody who's reading. I don't know if he's going to bring Bubba up to read with him, but we got. Oh, okay. I thought you were working. I know that's right. So, Neil, I'm sorry. I was going to call my sister Aisha last, but I'm going to let her, I'm going to come up here because okay. All right. I'm going to go back to what I was going to do. You ready? Okay. Yeah, you need those glasses. I think I have you. Okay. Aisha, I think you are next. Yeah. Yeah. Come on up. Right, because we've never seen anything short about Aisha. I'm gonna make her cross her fingers, pinky swear. Come on. Peace and blessings, family. Everybody doing all right today? All right, so I don't do much that's short. I know that. I come from the tribe, talk a lot. So I understand that, but today it's a little short. But I do want to say that I'm extremely proud to have been filled with the words, the thoughts, the books, and the times of Malcolm in my real life, my mother. We didn't, people ask me about shows that most people watched as kids. We might have been able to watch one show in the evening after school, and then we had to take out the book and read. So I had to read the autobiography of Malcolm X more than once, poetry by Nikki Giovanni. We read Langston Hughes and, Maya Angelou, and I can recite on a dime because of that. And I'm grateful, so I want to stand here to give honor to Malcolm X and to give honor to my mother who just had a birthday. I thank God for her. I didn't understand. You got to get grown to understand some of the wisdom that comes from your parents. Am I right? Yeah, so I give honor to her because I'm able to stand here knowing something, not being an empty vessel. And it's all right if you're empty and you're learning. But I stand here knowing, so I give honor to my mother, and I give honor to Al-Hajj Malik Shahbaz and all the legacy that he has left us. So with that, we were not prepared, but we have a habit of just jumping in and making it happen. We make lemonade all day long, so we don't say we can't. We say we'll do something. So I asked young brother Jabril to read a small excerpt, and he happily agreed. Right, Jabril? So I do want to say one thing about the young people. I know I'm not being short, right? So I want to say, too, that a lot of what you see with Street Corner Resources and some of the work we have done, it's not just Aisha. I am because we are, and this work takes the entire village, good or bad. There's been motivation in all of it. But I want to say that I'm really proud that we have young people, even when they don't want to do something, they still step up and do something. And so I always like to make sure that our young people in our community are honored for that, when it's not popular to do the thing anyway. And so with that, I give you Jabril.
What you and I need to learn is what you and I need to learn is to learn to forget our differences. We are together. We don't come together as Baptists or Methodists. You don't catch hell because you're a Baptist, and you don't catch hell because you're a Methodist. You don't catch hell because you're a Methodist or a Baptist. You don't catch hell because you're a Democrat or a Republican. You don't catch hell because you're a Marxist or an elk. And you sure don't catch hell because you're American. Because if you were an American, you wouldn't catch hell. You catch hell because you're a black man. You catch hell. All of us catch hell for the same reason.
Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Malcolm X.
Come on, give it up for Jabril. Aisha Say Cool and Street Corner Resources. This is what it's all about. This is what Malcolm would have wanted, for this message to continue and to go on. And like Aisha said, we don't always get it right. As adults, we don't even always get it right. But we're trying to learn, and they're trying to learn, and they learned something here today. And they did something here today. So I thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. They've been here, y'all have been here all day with the dirt and the trash and the plants. But we thank you for that, because they could have been doing something else. So thank you. Did we get a picture? Did somebody get a picture? Okay, here we go. Look at that. Look at this one. Did they stop? I am. Malcolm X. Malcolm X. I am. Malcolm X. Malcolm X. The first X. First X. All right, so now we're gonna hear, you know what? You got your glasses, but do you have a minute? Okay, because while we're on this, I want to ask my brother Noah to come up for a minute. You know, I'm so proud of him. As many of you know, I have a deep and old relationship with Wadley. And Noah is one of the Wadley poets. Unbelievable, right? That says something about my age. Don't you tell them how long ago you graduated. But it's just wonderful. This is what we do it for, William. This is what we do it for. When they say our children are failures, and they say that our children are not learning, this is what we do it for. Don't close our schools. Give us the resources that we need. Teach our children. If there's a problem, look within yourself. Maybe it's you and not them.
Assalamu alaikum. How's everybody feeling? My name is Noah. I'm just spit a piece. From the start you unpure, from the start you unsure. For Jesus the Lord and Christ the front door. It's impossible to please the Lord without faith. And trust me, without the Lord is without grace. I'm not a slave to sin, I'm a slave to Him. I don't live by the law because I'm raised with Him. My people perish from the lack of knowledge. And look at my people, you be seeing less blacks in college. It's not a game for this year. My aim is to gear up for the Lord and then praise Him from there. The Lord then gave me a shield and then He armed me. Prophesy over these bones and build an army. Without God is like a road with no trailer, and without Christ is like a boat with no sailor. A new creature, all things are fast and pray. A new preacher, old things are passed away. Obedience is better than the sacrifice. If I want anything, I just ask the Christ, yeah. Belief in the source, belief in the boss, because He was so faithful, He redeemed the thief on the cross. I abide by the faith and big and small rules, and bad company corrupts good moral rules. And I'm looking at His face, but the fog in the sky. You looking at the speck in His, but a log in your eye. If you draw close to God, then He draws to you. And it's nothing on this earth I love more than you. God wants to prosper you, but hope in the future. Scope in the future was broke when He scooped you. You got lust in your eye and the flesh. I put my trust in the best. When He came to the dust and He blessed. Faith is the substance of things not seen. There are things not clean and they're behind the scene. Sacrificial lamb, and He offered Himself, and He offered His wealth, and He offered His health. You misled by the worldly directions and do not yield in to worldly affections. Peace.
Noah. He wakes up like this. You can tell him, what year was it? He's a troublemaker. That's he used to get in trouble in class for that. Yeah. All right, so now we're going to hear from Neil. You know what? Did I give a round of applause to the Michelle Obama Community Club members? Where are y'all at? Yes, thank y'all so much. You know, we can't do these things alone. We don't do them by ourselves. Come on, Neil. Neil Shoemaker. Neil Shoemaker, entrepreneur. Harlem Heritage Tours. A product of this neighborhood. Built his own business.
Could have done it with the help of the community. This excerpt seems to come from a Harlem rally, 1960, probably a rally much like the one that we are in attendance here today. It goes as follows. Assalamu alaikum, beloved brothers and sisters. Welcome to our Harlem Freedom Rally. When we say our, we do not mean Muslim, nor Christian, Catholic, nor Protestant, Baptist, nor Methodist, Democrat, nor Republic, Mason, nor Elk. By our Harlem freedom, we mean the black people of Harlem, the black people of America, the black people all over this earth. The largest concentration of black people on earth is right here in Harlem. So we are gathered here today in Harlem Square to a freedom rally of black people, by black people, and for the benefit of black people. We are not here at all at this rally because we have already gained freedom. No, we are gathered here rallying for the freedom which we have long been promised. Like we have long been promised the realization of a statue here in this Harlem Plaza. So many years ago, like Cornelius mentioned, we were promised that, and we must realize that as I go forward, but have not yet received. This rally is for the perfect freedom which up until now this government has not granted us. There would be no need to protest to this government if we had already been free. Freedom is essential to life itself. Freedom is essential to the development of the human being. If we don't have freedom, we can never expect justice and equality. Only after we have freedom do justice and equality become a reality. Today we are gathered here at this rally to hear from our leaders who have been acting as our spokesmen and representing us to the white man downtown. We want to know how our leaders really think, how they talk, how they feel, and most importantly of all, we want them to know how we feel. Many of these leaders have suddenly become experts on Harlem. As such, are often regarded by the white man as the voice of Harlem. And if this must be the case, then we want the voice of these leaders to ring sometimes in Harlem too. Leaders have differences, and these differences oftentimes cause serious division among the masses. But the hour is too short today for black people to afford the luxury of differences. Again, I repeat, we are not gathered here today because we are Muslim, or so forth and so on.
We gotta give it up for, come on, Baba. Did y'all see him standing up there like that? Didn't he represent? Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, you know, we had some music planned for you. I want to shout out some other people who are in the area. We got our Athena Moore's here. She's the former Manhattan director for Gail Brewer. She came and joined us today. And Andy, who I've known for so long, I would like you to come up and say a few words.
Andy!
We met at the Schomburg,
Nicest
maybe?
man in the world.
We met everywhere. I want to say it was a pleasure to be here with the invitation of Neil Shoemaker, and I know most of you beautiful people are here. Amazing. Now, the Genesis 2 Museum of International Black Culture is not dead. The building we were in on 138th Street in Edison College Junior Boulevard was sold. We're now going to reopen on 126th Street in Amsterdam Avenue. We do have a prominent, Mr. Allen. I have your attention, sir. Where we have a very prominent collection of Malcolm X with prominent photographers Lloyd Yearwood and Robert Higgins. And so next year, and I want to join this committee and assure the world that Malcolm X is going to be here with a sculpture object as well as the Malcolm X Center. All right? Thank you. At 93 years old, Mr. Allen, I give my life on that, my word on that. And I want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to join the committee, and we are going to make this bloody thing happen. Thank God. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. And thank you to you, Shoemaker. Bye-bye.
He's good up there, man.
Thank you for that. Yeah, phenomenal. You know, this is our community, everybody. Give yourselves a round of applause. I want us to hear a little bit more from Dr. Mannan, though. You know, they got off a little bit because we got into these speeches and talking. But you know, we love this part of our culture too. So let's hear something from y'all.
We're going to now feature a version of My Favorite Things written by John Coltrane with some wonderful lyrics that were composed by the great Terry Davis.
Testing. Yes. Thank you so much. I'd just like to say I wrote these lyrics back in my days at Howard University. Any Howardites in the house? Just checking. Yes. Black colleges support HBCUs. So this is our version of My Favorite Things. Rainbows that reflect the colors of living, sunshine on islands and spirits of giving, tropical islands and tropic settings. These are a few of my favorite things. Winter's white dress made of snow in December, autumn's sweet promise of new in September, my laughter of children and all their blessings. These are a few of my favorite things. Closeness of family built over generations, conquering hard times through positive vibrations. The laughter of children and all their blessings. These are a few of my favorite things. My sisters of culture that love one another, rebels and the Nubian activist brother, my African people of every hue. These are some favorites to name just a few.
satchmo.mannan. Sisters of culture that love one another, rebels and the militant Nubian brother, my African people of every hue. These are some favorites, to name just a few: Malcolm and Martin and Nelson and Marcus, Winnie and Rosa, Sojourner and Shirley. People who live and have died for the cause, people whom I feel deserve an applause. Martin, Nelson, and Marcus, Winnie, Rosa, Sojourner, and Shirley. People who live and have died for the cause. People whom I feel deserve an applause. As these times are so depressing and I'm feeling sad, I simply just think of my favorite things, and then I don't feel sad. Malcolm and Martin, Nelson and Marcus, so bad. Malcolm, Martin, Nelson, and Marcus, Winnie, Rosa, Sojourner, and Shirley. A love supreme, a love supreme. My favorite thing, my favorite thing, my favorite thing, my favorite thing.
All right, come on, give it up again. Come on now. There was Martin and Malcolm, Nelson and Marcus, Winnie, Rosa, Sojourner, and Shirley. These are the people who died and lived for a cause. And these are the ones who deserve an applause. Yeah, that's what's up. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So, you know, yeah, that was perfect and right on time. So many legends, so many people for us to stand on the shoulders of, to take direction from, right? So we have another reader with us, and that's Sister Athena Moore. Please come up.
Blessings, family. Always an honor and privilege to be here. Thank you, Cordell. Certainly, I want to thank all of you who were responsible for putting this event together, Sister Valerie, Joe, Bradley, and the team. When we talk about Malcolm, my early reference very briefly just goes back to his autobiography. That was one of the first introductions that I had to Malcolm, and I absorbed it so quickly because it just reflected everything that it needed for me growing up in New York City. And one of the things that I took away from a quote that he has always been remembered for is, education is the passport for the future. And in my own life, you know, it was the wisdom poured into me from my relatives, my ancestors, my grandmother, who said that just keep your eye focused on that prize, and that will take you far and into the future. So thank you. I'm reading briefly from Malcolm X Speaks, The Black Revolution. Friends and enemies, tonight I hope that we can have a little fireside chat with as few sparks as possible being tossed around, especially because of the very explosive condition that the world is in today. Sometimes when a person's house is on fire and someone comes in yelling fire, instead of the person who is awakened by the yell being thankful, he makes the mistake of charging the one who awakened him with having set the fire. I hope that this little conversation tonight about the Black Revolution won't cause many of you to accuse us of igniting it when you find it at your doorstep. During recent years, there's been much talk about a population explosion. Whenever they are speaking of the population explosion, in my opinion, they are referring primarily to the people in Asia or in Africa. The black, brown, red, and yellow people. It is seen by people of the West that as soon as the standard of living is raised in Africa and Asia, automatically the people begin to reproduce abundantly. And there has been a great deal of fear engendered by this in the minds of the people of the West, who happen to be on this earth a very small minority. In fact, in most of the thinking and planning of whites in the West today, it's easy to see the fear in their minds, conscious minds and subconscious minds, that the masses of dark people in the East, who already outnumber them, will continue to increase and multiply and grow until they eventually overrun the people of the West, like a human sea, a human tide, a human flood. And the fear of this can be seen in the minds, in the actions of most of the people here in the West, in practically everything that they do. It governs their political views, and it governs their economic views, and it governs most of their attitudes towards the present society. I was listening to Dirksen, the senator from Illinois and Washington, D.C., filibustering the Civil Rights Bill. Does that sound familiar? And one thing that he kept stressing over and over and over was that if this bill is passed, it will change the social structure of America. Well, I know what he's getting at, and I think that most people today, and especially our people, know that what is meant when these whites who filibuster these bills express fears of changes in the social structure. Does that sound familiar? Our people are beginning to realize what they mean. Just as we can see that all over the world, one of the main problems facing in the West is race. Likewise, here in America today, most of your Negro leaders, as well as the whites, agree that 1964 itself appears to be one of the most explosive years yet in the history of America on the racial front and on the racial scene. Not only is this racial explosion probably to take place in America, but all of the ingredients for this racial explosion in America to blossom into a worldwide racial explosion present themselves right here in front of us. America's racial powder keg, in short, can actually fuse or ignite a worldwide powder keg. There are whites in this country who are still complacent when they see the possibilities of racial strife getting out of hand. You are complacent simply because you think you outnumber the racial minority in this country. What you have to bear in mind is wherein you might outnumber us in this country, you don't outnumber us all over the earth. So the Black Revolution, Malcolm X speaks. Thank you so much. May this word be in the spirit of each and every one of us. Ashe.
Thank you so much, Athena, for that powerful reading. I wanted to mention that we got proclamations today from many of our elected leaders. Some of them couldn't be here today. And we have one here from Inez Dickens, our Assemblywoman, and also from our Councilman, Bill Perkins, who I reminded all of you earlier, I worked for when this plaza was dedicated. And it's a shame that till now the promise has not been made. I hope all of you were inspired here today by what you've heard, what you've been reminded of. And like Malcolm, you know, I challenge you to do something about it. Speak up about injustice. Athena just read some words and she kept saying, does it sound familiar, right? Y'all all heard it, let's make America great again. Without translation, we all know what that meant to us. That they were talking to us and about us. So, you know, it still exists. All the things that Malcolm taught us are still there. And we have to continue to reject them, fight against them, stand up against it. Always speak the truth. It's not about hurting anybody's feelings. What about our feelings? And what about our people? What about our blood? What about our poverty? Generationally, the brutality, the abuse, the suffering, what about that? Stand up for what is right. And those of us who have any position, I don't care what it is, you use it to speak up and to raise your people up. It's your obligation. You must. And you know what? Don't tell me you're tired. Because even though Fannie Lou Hamer said, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, that was just her expression, but she worked. She continued to work through trauma like you probably wouldn't even imagine. Imagine someone sterilizing you when you go into a hospital and you can't sue anybody, taking away your right. Imagine, and to be sane in your right mind after all of that and continue to fight for your people. But it's what we have to do. It's what we've been given. It's the charge we've been given, and we have to take it up. So I challenge everyone today, if you loved what you heard, if anything moves you, I need you to stand up, and you need to speak out. And sometimes we need to speak out to each other. Come on, don't get quiet. We gotta speak out to each other. Stop killing each other. Stop it. Stop the gun violence. Cut it out. There's nothing out here to be killing anybody about. Nothing. Not money, not nothing. There's nothing out here, so stop it. Stop bringing down your community. Stop disrespecting black women. Stop it. Stop the violence against black women. Stop it. And stop disrespecting our black children. They're not little MFs. That's not how you're supposed to talk to them. Okay? You were given a blessing. That is a responsibility. And you will be charged for doing harm. So do good. Do good. Teach our children, nurture them, love them, let them know that they're somebody. It starts at this age. So everybody has a responsibility. Don't tell me I'm not elected and I'm not a this and I'm not a that and that. Bring change. You can do it. Rosa Parks was not elected. There were many people and women before her who were not elected, but they impacted change. They made a difference. So we can all make a difference in whatever we do. Okay, so I'm gonna let y'all leave out with listening to the sounds of Mannan, however long they want to continue to grace us with this. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out today. Make sure you sign our petition. We are going to take this further. We are going to continue to advocate for signage and continue to advocate for a memorial, a proper memorial for Malcolm X, for seating, for repair of the art in the subway, and more. We're going to continue to do that. And we're going to join you next year, Andy. All right, thank you so much. And thank you, Valerie Jo Bradley. Mr. Bailey, thank you again. All right, you got to come back more often. All right? Thank you.
You're welcome. God bless you. God bless our community.
Hurry, 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 we're going to Harlem. It's the quickest way, well, you gotta take the A train. If you wanna go to Malcolm X Square in Harlem, you gotta take the A train. Can't you hear those rails are humming? I can see Malcolm dancing right now. Hurry, 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 get on, because he could really do that jitterbug, you know, right? Gotta take the A train. Talking about the quickest way to Harlem.
Get aboard, get aboard, get aboard the A train. Yeah, you wanna go to Malcolm Square in Harlem. That A train. Oh, you wanna go to Malcolm Square in Harlem. Yeah, don't you hear that train coming? The drums are playing, the banjo's humming, yeah. If you want to go to Malcolm Square in Harlem,
shut up, but a paper bag, shut up, but I didn't need it up. We